This last week, I read a piece of news, nothing important, quite insignificant, but somehow it connects to what I want to talk about today. Twitter is about to uh, to put out a feature, paid, that when you put out a post, a tweet, then you have time to erase it, because usually what happens is when you tweet something or you post something, once you hit enter, it's out there. But they give you this ability to send a message, and then you have a brief amount of time to cancel it. Because what happens today is, once you've sent a message, you can't modify it or cancel it. I said it now. Imagine if in our lifetime we could actually take back our actions or words spoken impulsively. That we'd say, "Wow, great!" But the solution isn't to take them back. The solution is before hitting enter, we need to reread what we've written a couple of times and ask ourselves, "Is this really what I want to say to the world?" So it's not about Twitter or any of these communication. So the point is about our communication towards the world. Our acting, our spoken word, our written word, our own communication towards the world. It's very important to be able to create space between this interaction in any daily situation and our reaction. Because there are two ways to interact. One is by reacting, and another is with an action done with awareness. They're two very different things. Often, our tendency is to react. Something happens of any kind, anything. And let's remember that every time that we see something, every time we come into contact with, regardless of the situation, that, how can I say, that touches inside us, and it resounds something. It's as if that some kind of brief like inner research has been done inside our inner database, and that wakes something up inside of us. So every time we relate to different situations, it's always at least a part. It's a reflection of what we have inside of us, our ideas, our projections, our past experiences, our ideas. Reacting would not be a problem if we were deeply familiarized with only virtuous aspects. A person who is deeply familiarized with stability and awareness and respect and gratitude and love and wisdom, etc., wouldn't have any problem reacting. The problem is when we're familiarized with aversion and jealousy and envy, dissatisfaction, arrogance, selfishness, etc. And we have our own traumas, our own inner problems. And so when something happens, boom, we react. The reaction in itself, what happens? We say things that probably we wouldn't say in other situations. If we had reread 2 or 3 times, what we've written, maybe we wouldn't have sent it. or if we had thought more about it, we wouldn't have read it. But once we do say and write and interact with others, that action is no longer just ours. Now it belongs to the world. I've hit enter, and when it comes back to me, I need to be ready to receive that. I'm not talking just about the reaction of the other person. I'm talking also about the karmic reaction, the so-called karmic reaction. When I do an action, I create an inertia that sooner or later is going to come back to me. For this, one just key point for our lives, on a spiritual and mundane level, is having control. Is not even the right word, but I can't think of another word right now. Have control over our actions. In other words, know how to direct well our actions. Actions, I mean how we interact physically, how we interact verbally, and how we interact mentally, emotionally. We begin with having control on a physical level. Then we get to a verbal control, to then reach mental control. But the first thing that we have to do is to begin to create space between this object of interaction and our reaction. We need a little space where we can see that impulse of the reaction and wait just a moment before manifesting that reaction to the world. And something that for me becomes essential is because when we react, there are two main aspects. One has to do with, like, I say something to you and you understand what you understand, and then you react, in your own way, and there's like a chain of events that inevitably comes from what I say, what I do. There's another part. I live a certain situation that resounds something inside me, something that was unresolved or whatever it is, and this makes me react with envy or arrogance or anger or fear or any negative reaction, emotion, and I react through that emotion. Once I react, once I materialize that emotion that has shown up inside me, I am strongly nourishing that emotion, feeding that emotion. It becomes stronger. If I want to feed anger and jealousy and envy and arrogance and anything like this, I need to manifest it. I need to show it. I need to speak and show and do. Because every time we show in matter, let's say in material, an emotion, that emotion then deep inside of us becomes even stronger. So, something that I've seen a lot, often, that something happens and a person reacts. And what happens is that situation touches something, some kind of wound inside, and boom, out. Some kind of reaction comes out. The person knows that that way of acting is not beneficial to himself and to others, but finds a logical reason why he should act, or why he acts like this. So a whole process of explanation and validation, because this and this is not right, etc., etc. And what for me becomes really important is that independently of the fact that the thing that independently of whether what we say is right or wrong, or the choice that we're making is right or wrong, The point is, if at the basis of that action there's envy or jealousy, anger, resentment, dissatisfaction, arrogance, or any other destructive emotion, these mental defilements, then it's better to wait for that moment to pass before acting. The point isn't if what we're about to say is right or wrong. The point is, if I say that thing when I'm having that strong emotional reaction based on a mental defilement, I am going to feed even more that feeling. And not just that, also if I say the right, the most correct things in the world, but said with a negative motivation, I'm going to pollute them, that idea, and then this is not it, and it's not right. I've seen this a lot in my life. People saying the right thing in the wrong manner. I don't know if this ever happened to you. And then when someone says the right thing in the wrong way, what speaks louder, what was said or the way in which it was said? The manner in which it was said. I remember once, many years ago in India, someone came to me, was very very angry, blah, 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 blah. Oh, so, don't get angry, I'm not angry. So well, if you're not angry, well, don't speak like that. I'm not angry. I'm not talking like that. Well, instead, yes, because the problem is that one becomes so used to reacting in a certain way they don't even realize it. Something becomes a habit. Mostly when it comes without thinking about it, and one doesn't even realize. That's when it's most worrisome. When we start realizing it, even if we don't have complete control, it's already a good sign that we start to see it. So it depends a lot, a lot depends on our own objective in life, what we talked about yesterday, because if my objective is to develop my inner qualities so that I can go beyond, like the light that eliminates the darkness, so eliminate the causes of my suffering, these mental defilements, so that I can help others go beyond their own suffering, then my life is a constant training. But there's no one who has created the universe that could come and could come and create a new rule that says they have this new feature of being able to take back what you've said or done or thought. No, reality is not Twitter. In real life, when I say something, it's out there. And not just that. That emotion, I have fed it. So, to be able to do this, we need, first of all, to train in creating space between perception, so the words that we hear, situations we experiences, situations, and our reactions. At the beginning, this can even feel strange, because if one does it well, it takes time. If someone slows down a little bit, say, okay, there's something, okay, let me think about that a minute, let me take a deep breath. Then I act. There wouldn't be any problems if a person has a strong coherence between what he feels and thinks, and has virtuous emotions. A person who is strongly familiarized with an inner state of peace and balance, etc., doesn't really have this problem. But many of us, we have a strong incoherence between what we feel, what we think. And we know that this is the best way to act, but that what we're living touches some inner wound, and it's difficult to not say or not do something. So an exercise that we can do that's relatively easy is to insert something in between, but something between this perception, this experience, and the reaction. So what we're going to put in between can be one's own breathing with awareness, can be a mantra that we recite. The other day I had some fun. I was doing a bureaucratic practice on online. It was really slow. I mean, like, it's not the understatement to say slow. You had to insert all the maps of the center, and I had to put in like 200, and every time you inserted a map, you had to click and just wait, and then then the next line, and then every click was really slow, and it wasn't exactly pleasurable. It was at the end of the day. I was tired. It was something easy, but it wasn't working. Why this portal is so slow and not working well? And then I found something. So when I would click, I started to count how long it made to wait. I started reciting mantras, the mantra of Lama Michel. It was the length of one mantra of Mixema. So I was there doing Mixema, Lama Tsongkhapa. Every time I clicked, I did 200 mantras. As I was clicking. And then it was even slower. I said, maybe I need to get to the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva. Seems something stupid, but I was living something that was generating a non-pleasurable feeling, and I realized how I was reacting, and I found a way to do something positive and fun, to live the experience differently. So the fundamental point is having control when we have that little window of opportunity between the experience and the reaction. There is that moment where we can direct our minds. It's a little bit like the example that I've been using for many years. Just imagine that we have a kind of monster. Imagine like a vicious dog who every once in a while is very sweet, and we have him on a leash. He's coming with us. At a certain point, someone comes and starts to poke the dog. I would say, be careful. This dog looks really sweet, but it's dangerous, and the person just keeps poking. At a certain point, the dog starts to growl. And then, as long as we're able to hold the leash, but once the dog has gotten out of the leash, we need to just wait for him to come back, because unfortunately he comes back. So when he comes back, he comes, with his tail between the legs, and we say, "Oh, poor doggy, they poked you." I mean, we have our inner monsters of anger and envy, etc. So here they are. It seems like everything's fine, and someone pinches us, because who wants to get angry? Does anyone enjoy getting angry? No. So when we get angry, it's because someone did something to us. I mean, it's not our fault. So someone comes, does something, touches a point that's a painful point, and once that anger comes out, we just need to wait for it to calm down. And when it calms, it's not that it doesn't come back. No, it comes back, and what do we do with our own anger? We say, "Oh, poor baby. Oh, it's true. I know you didn't want to act like this, but if they hadn't said that thing, if they hadn't done that thing, they just look at how they act, these people." And so we give even more strength more validation. So something to do also is, it's a little outside the subject of today, is when we're not able to not react. Once we realize that we've acted and that moment is finished, we must absolutely not justify that reaction with. So we shouldn't. So without justifying and without blaming, we need to recognize that we have a strong habit. We have our own reactions, our own traumas. I acted in a way I shouldn't have. I need to be more careful in the future to not react like this. End of story. Because if we start an inner dialogue where we start justifying why we reacted like that, at that point, we're going to nourish even more that feeling. It's interesting because it seems to me that when we see that we have a behavior that's not correct, it's as if that is somewhere that like somehow that harms our ego, our sense of self, and we have to justify, why we did it here and there. This brings to my mind, I mean, it's happened a couple times, not so many times, but it has happened a couple times, to say something to someone, and if I say something, I mean that. I have a very limited mind. I am not able to go round and round. If I say this, it's that. If I say this, it's this. If I say that, it's that. And if I want to say that, I say that. And I don't say this so that you understand that. And if you say this, I understand this. Don't expect me to understand that if you tell me this. In monastery, it was a disaster because the Tibetans are exactly like this. They tell you this so that you understand that other thing. It happened to me many times. I told the people close to me, I told my teachers, please, if you need to tell me something, please tell me that thing. Don't tell me something for me to understand something else, because according to my own logic, I know every interpretation that I give to anything is fruit of my own imagination. So if you want to tell me something so I understand something different, how many infinite possibilities are there? Even if you want me to understand the exact thing that you tell me, that's difficult. Imagine if I have to go just simply on my imagination, say something to have the other person understand something else. This is my way of being. I can't even try. If I want to say something, I say that thing. So it's happened to me a couple times to say something to someone, but it had to be very objective, like an example, which has nothing to do with the experience that would happen. But if I, for example, so if I have someone needs to paint a wall, so someone is painting a wall, and they're using the color green, and the indication that was given was that it was supposed to be blue. So I come to you and I say, oh, hi, sorry, it shouldn't be green. The right color is blue. What would be the easiest thing? Okay, let's change color and put blue. But instead, that would be the easiest thing. But no, but nobody told me. Oh, I didn't mean to do anything against you. It's not my fault. It's this other person's fault. Well, I went and that right color, the correct color wasn't there. What do I know? So there's like a whole story comes out to show that the person isn't to blame. And I'm saying, oh no, it's not. It has nothing to do with how I feel about you. Or I'm just saying that the color is wrong. It's the end of story. Instead, no. This reminds me, sorry, sometimes these like images and memories come up, and if I don't say them, they just stay there waiting. I was in India once. This reminds me of an anecdote that really touched me. I was painting the house, that house where I lived in India, and we were doing the facade, and it was mostly color beige, and there were some details that I had painted Bordeaux. And at a certain point, the painter came. We look at the colors. We start in one part. It's going well. So I go off to my lessons. I come back a couple hours later, like half a day later, and so you could see from below. It was a house that was about 3 stories high. And when I get to the house, I see that the sides of the house were, as I had said, but instead the, ex- the front of the house was pink. And, and I did what I said before. I took a deep breath before reacting. I said, I'm not going to go straight to the painter, not right away. Let me just try to understand someone. Maybe somebody said something to him. So I went to one of my masters, who was also a friend, who lived there, because it was my house, but there were two next to it. There was a structure with 2 rooms. So I went to him. I said, "Genla," and he knew the painter well. I said, "Do you know anything about the facade?" "Oh yeah." "What?" And I said, "What happened?" "No, the painter came, and he said that he went to buy other paint because because how you said it was just too boring, and so it was better pink." Excuse me, sorry. I don't understand. No, it's exactly like that. At this point, I had to breathe 3 times. And I had to face my own attachment to what, according to me, was right. I had to use the technique of that everything is an imputation of the name. That the color is relative, what is beautiful, what is ugly, and it's not that is going to determine my state of well-being. And I remember this scene where I'm just in front of this thing. I mean, if it were all pink, one thing, but the sides were beige color, cream color. And I remember this inner movement of this that tension that had been created. Why did you do what you shouldn't have done? Why is it the way it should? Why is not the way it should have been? And it just all melted. And little by little, I made peace with this pink facade, and it became quite symbolic for me afterwards. I spoke to the painter and I told him, it's not correct from my point of view to not have at least asked me. It's fine it's wonderful that you have your own ideas and you want to better things, because you don't agree with this. I mean, you spend your life painting houses, you have your experiences and your ideas, but this is my house. So you should have asked me. And he said, "Oh, okay, no, I'll fix it. I said, "No, leave it pink." And for me, it was an important exercise. These are moments that really leave a mark. In any case, this is just a quick parenthesis that sometimes there are situations that make us reflect on things. So the situation, the external situation, just can become like emblematic situations because they touch something inside, and I'm very grateful to this painter. Even if that facade remains ugly in my point of view, but it was important for me. This also reminds me of a time when I started restructuring the house inside, putting, restructuring, and then one thing leads to another. Okay, let's do this. Why don't we all do that? And one day, as I was doing things, Genlak Bala, my master with whom I lived, he said to me, remember, everything you want to do, if you think that it's really necessary, then I'm going to help you, regardless of what it is. But remember that desire has no end. And when he said that, it was like that moment where I really understood that I began doing things that I thought were necessary. For example, the shower. There was like a bucket for taking a shower. So, doing one thing led to another thing, and I saw that this was like, it was like an endless horizon if I kept going on, do this and then do that. And what was even more interesting is that in our perception of good or bad, and of like quality or beautiful or ugly, what's a lot, what's a little, if it's enough, it's not enough. It depends exclusively on reference points. So when I walked into that house when the floor was made of cement and to straw and two straw mats, when I put linoleum floor, it seemed marvelous. At a certain point, I go to a big city and I see that they're selling wood flooring. And then I came home and I said, oh, how disgusting, this plastic linoleum floor. And I start seeing, and the more I saw, I invested a lot of time and money, and I was even less content than before my starting point, because I started to see more defects. I realized that the walls weren't straight. I mean, who cares? But look at the walls, not straight. Look at this here and that there. And I realized, through these words of my master, that I was going into like a way of no return, where there was an infinite horizon. And he really put the brakes on me. And there were works there was work that I stopped and I never concluded, and as a mark to remind me that there's never an end. No matter how much you do, there will always be more to do. So I left that job undone to remind me of that, because at the end of the day, what's more important is not the color of the facade. It's not how this is done or how that done, but how we're living it. What's important, it's subjective. It's not objective. And the subjective question, the most powerful part is the subject, not the object. It's our own satisfaction, and in all of this, creating this space between the reaction, or between the situation and the reaction, becomes very important. So I invite you to create this habit of creating space before answering, before reacting physically, before taking a decision or acting in a certain way. Create space. At the beginning, this space needs to be longer, and little by little, as you create habit, the space can be very short. But one is able in a very short amount of time to redirect. As a child, I had this habit of always observing my own thoughts. I have this good fortune. So I was, what I'm doing, what am I doing, where I'm going. And it's happened. It's happened. It's happened sometimes that I'm doing something and then like a thought comes. I don't even know where it's coming from, but it's maybe not such a something so positive. I said, okay, just let it go. I'm not going to nourish it and give it space. No, let it come and let it go. So I invite you in this week, try for this week, try to observe your breath or even recite a mantra. If we have a mantra like the mantra of Buddha Shakyamuni, Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Soha, if we're at the beginning, if we're at the if we're at the beginning, a mantra that's a little bit longer is better because Mani Padme Hum, maybe that's just too fast. Maybe you need to do it 21 times. I mean, do something that gives you enough space, not too long because then the mind will wander. But instead, it needs to be just the right amount of time to create this space. So the mantra of Buddha Shakyamuni is very good. And I think, do something, breathe 3 times. The concept is not, it's not about like thinking before speaking. No, it's more like think before you think. You think before you establish a thought. Give yourself the space to reflect well on the thought as you create it before saying it's like this. And of course before giving the space for those emotions and thoughts to materialize. Giving the space helps us tremendously. And if we see that we're impulsive, it's not always negative. I mean, there are also beautiful reactions, but it's fundamental importance on a mundane and spiritual level to have the reins of our, the reins of our life, of our speech and our actions, in our hands and not simply react. And for this, we need to start observing and directing our actions, being less impulsive in the small daily actions, those things that we would normally call insignificant, because it's only by training ourselves in the small daily things that we'll be able to master the more difficult things. We need to create this buffer between one thing and the next. Just breathe. Close your eyes for a minute. If you're in a moment where you can feel that a strong reaction is about to come, get up and go to the bathroom. If you're with somebody, sorry, excuse me, I need to go to the bathroom. Just a minute, and then you come back. All right. Let's be careful to gradually to manage to take our own life into our own hands with awareness and direction. Now let's do our dedications for today.
Jitsun alame kutse rapten chi namkara trinle chochur gepadang losan tempe drume sasumon ki drove munsela takto ne gyur chi kewa kunto yanda lamadang dralme cheki pela longche ching Sadan lamge yönden rabzone dorje change kopang Nyur tobe sho nimo dele tsendele nime kunyan delek shin Nintsen takto delek pe kuncho sumke jingi lo kuncho sumke ngodrubo tsol kuncho sumke trashisho. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Buona giornata a tutti.